would you be able to define what's meant by these two terms, shamanist and shaman? And then I've got a follow-up question I want to ask you then.
So much as you'd go, so like obviously everyone in the household, so everyone, most people in the UK, I'm sure, has an idea of some basic medical practice. So like paracetamol, for example, you take it if you've got a headache, ibuprofen if you've got muscle ache. But you wouldn't try and perform surgery on yourself, and you wouldn't try and perform complex medical procedures or diagnose yourself or prescribe complex medicines to yourself because you'd go see a doctor. So it's the
Well,
same,
or Google.
or Google, yes.
Or ask ChatGPT, but not that they're advisable
Mm.
methods.
But when it comes to
I take your
shamanists,
point.
it's the same. They have ideas of spiritual hygiene. They have ideas of ways to keep balance with the world around them and support themselves and their family. But they will go to the help of a spiritual specialist who will diagnose their issues and treat them accordingly. Or they may go to a shaman with a specific request and ask it to be performed. But genuinely, like they will go for a diagnosis, see what the problem is, why aren't they achieving what they want to, and then treat it according to the issues at hand. So it's the specialization in that role, much like a doctor
Mm,
specializes in the medical field.
mhm. And then how would you define, I may have missed it, but would you then define a sharp, well, I think you did actually, didn't you? So that's the taking paracetamol, knowing that kind of basic first aid and sort of um, simpler self care, and versus going to a doctor or a surgeon for more complex.
Yes, but I would say with a shamanist, they already have an understanding of the cosmology. They have an understanding of like how the world works around them. So they would
Mm,
still be able to mitigate or treat or avoid a lot of harms. When it comes to
mm,
these traditional cultures compared to Western cultures, the harms that we face are very different to the harms they face. And that's because they already have an understanding, a deep understanding from a young age is in their culture, so entrenched in their culture that they can't literally as you're growing up, you're surrounded by it. So they have so much knowledge of how to mitigate problems or treat problems that the issues that they face are nothing like we face in the West.
mm.
Whereas for us
Yes.
in the
Hmm.
West, we may a lot of people like I've encountered a lot of people that go, as if it's not if I don't believe in it or I don't know about it, it's not going to harm me. But that's not the way of it. That's not the way of the world. Like, doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. The effects of it are still going to be there. A person may be wondering why is their good fortune running out? Why are they struggling to get a job? Why are they constantly getting sick without understanding it? And these are the things that somebody would go to a shaman for. Whether they people in we
Hmm.
might not think it's a spiritual issue, but there's a root deep cause that can be treated.
Mm. I'm going to go back to you again, Eddie, because I want to go to spiritual hygiene in a moment, but I'd love to hear your sense. And again, I know your journey very much has been going from I'm training as a shaman, I'm a shaman, and then oh, okay, perhaps I'm not. would
That's
would
a
you
good way
share?
of summing it up.
Would you share a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, yeah. For me, um, when I first visited Mongolia, I was traveling. I was the only Westerner, and I was traveling with four different families up to the Darhad Valley. And one of the first things I noticed during the rituals was that everybody, including small children, knew what was happening. They knew how to act. They knew what to do, and there was no prior explanation needed. It was just part of their everyday life, as Isaac mentioned. And my experience before that with neo shamanism was that not only had only quite specific people attended rituals or ceremonies, um, that the actual ceremonies themselves were performed very differently, and people in the West were also very hungry for their own experience when attending, rather than focusing on the actual outcome of the ritual. How, when I was in Mongolia, only the shaman performed, and everyone was there, uh, sort of listening to the shaman who would go into trance and relay messages, and listening and wanted to see what the outcome of the ritual would be. Whereas with neo-shamanism, it seemed to be more focused around on, people would get together and everyone would drum, or everyone would be part of it, or everyone would sing, and there's this sort of desire for this shared experience. And unless someone felt something in the moment or had their own peak experience, if you like, it was seen as, oh, that ritual didn't really do anything. And I remember speaking to my teacher about it and saying, this is very different. Have you observed this? And she said, yeah, in the West, often you only think something's happened if you feel something in the ritual. But in Mongolia, it doesn't matter if you feel something or not, unless you experience true and lasting positive change in your life, the ritual hasn't been successful. And I think that, I know we mentioned briefly this sense of community and self-cherishing attitude. I think that's part of that maybe rearing its head as well, going to these rituals as a Westerner, and practicing neo-shamanism and wanting this big peak experience, wanting to meet spirits, or wanting to, meet your ancestors, or wanting to, release all your trauma. And I understand those desires, but it's a different viewpoint. It's a very different viewpoint. And it seemed to me in Mongolia, it's this synergy between the shaman and the spirits, and then the shaman and the shamanists, which helped this shamanic culture to thrive. And, like I mentioned, a lot of core shamanic trainings in the West seem to be really focused on becoming a practitioner. And I don't really think there's anything inherently wrong with that. I just think that if we are really to move forward with an authentic shamanic culture in the West, there has to be a knowledge grounded into our culture of being a shamanist, understanding at least the basic tenets of universal law, understanding what a shaman is capable of, where to turn to a shaman, how community really works, how we can start to keep ourselves spiritually clean, or do our best to do that.